Ooh, that's a good one. Sounds like a victory song. I love it. All right, hold on a second now. Wait a second. I gotta think about Bill though. Let's find one for Bill. Here we go. Yeah, but it doesn't fit the theme. I've got to have something upbeat and going and kind of dramatic. Yeah. I'm sorry, Bill. I'm sorry, buddy. I got to put something else on, pal. It's great. I love it. All right, a few more seconds, Bill. Just a few more seconds, my friend. All right, here we go. All right, this video is absolutely for Grace and her daughter, and for our success, our achievement in pulling this Husqvarna Viking 2000 out of the ashes and giving it a new life. But I got to give some credit also to Bunny and to Lori because their machines are in the background. So let's zoom in on Bunny's to begin with. 185K, looking really good. All right, let's get a little closer. Woo! That is a good looking machine. Let's get over to Lori's. Lori's is a 185J. There she is. All right, now the star attraction. Grace, this machine gave me a challenge, let me tell you. It had me going upside down and left and right, but that's okay, we won. Okay, hey, let me stop this music as cool as it is, because I want to focus in on a couple of things. This is obviously a Husqvarna Viking 2000. Came to me with a number of challenges. It had a broken cam stack. It had some other areas as well that needed some immediate attention, including the tension control. The upper tension was all goofed up. Had some issues. Well, you'll see them in the Facebook picture posts. We had the Teflon off of the raceway bucket that turns the hook and everything. It was just all goofy loofy. But the other thing I wanted to focus in on are these cams that go with this machine. You're going to notice that the cam on the far left here has 3 points of contact. That's not right or wrong, because you'll find these cams for the 2000 model with 3, with 2, and as Grace brought me with her cams, with just 1. There is some rumor that they moved from the original design of 3 down to 2 and down to 1 because they were having issues with exactly what happened to Grace's machine, and that is that when you're pushing that plastic in and out constantly, changing out from cams, you end up having problems with that cam stack getting too much pressure and it cracks. And this also happened to Jackie Miller as well. I didn't have the technique that I used then, and it wasn't perfected, so I wasn't able to use it on Jackie's. So we ended up replacing Jackie's cam stack with a 6000 series Colormatic, which gave her the ability to use the machine, but some of the stitches were off. The good news about this new approach I have is it preserves all the original stitches and the output is not altered. So that's a great success. I'm extremely stoked about that. And I've got to show you folks, let me lock this in. Actually, I'll come out a little bit more. I got to show you folks before we go into a stitch off that because of the repairs that were needed on Grace's Husqvarna Viking 2000, we had to get the serious stuff out and put on our magnifiers. Because some of that stuff that I had to see, holy mackerel. You saw it in the Facebook posts. Some of that stuff was just downright microscopic. And so I had to really get in there with these and see exactly what I needed to see to get that repair done and to get this machine back sewing again. And I know I posted with those Facebook posts, will it sew again? All of you were like skeptical, because you know I'm not going to give up on any machine. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to give up on a machine until I've given it everything I can to get it back on track. So let's zoom in and see what I've been able to do for Grace's and her daughter's Husqvarna Viking 2000. All right? Let me spin my screen around so I can see where we're seeing. And you know what? Let's do this a little bit wide scope just so I can show you. And then we'll make one more move. I apologize. We're bumbling here. But hopefully you can see that in that shot. I'm hoping you can. I think you can. Okay, these are the 3 set dials on a Husqvarna Viking 2000. And when you're setting the dials on these, the whole idea of the Colormatic series was to make it simple. They wanted to take the complexity out of setting stitches, and so they came up with these 3 dials, and they're color coded. So this would be for, well, you can't quite see it in the shot. I'll broaden my shot a little bit. Otherwise, I'm pointing off screen and you're going, okay, I wonder what he's pointing at, but you have no clue whatsoever. All right. There we go. That helps a little bit, I think. All right. Let me spin the screen around again. Okay, so now I think you can see in the shot, hopefully. Up here, you've got Cam A represented, Cam B, Cam C, and Cam D. And right now in the back of Grace's sewing machine, I have Cam D. So we're going to be focusing on this area right here, but you can see each one of these is color-coded. So, for example, on this dial here, if you're wanting to, let's say you have Cam A, then you're going to turn this, you won't even have to turn this dial because it's already set on purple, and we want to sew this first stitch. And I might even have to get closer in on that, because you're probably saying, we can kind of see it, but not really, Scott. I get it. Okay, so let's really zoom in on that puppy. There we go. See that? It sometimes takes me a couple of tries, but I get it. I get it, folks. All right, so that's, again, we don't have Cam A in the machine right now. We have Cam D, but I'm just showing you this as an example. So if we wanted to sew this purple stitch pattern right here, then we would set the dial below on purple, and we would set the next one on purple, and then we would turn the bottom one to the multicolored number 4, and I'll show you what that looks like. As a matter of fact, I'll set this one right now so it's set appropriately, and then I'll show you each of the dials. That's probably the easiest thing. So right now, assuming that we had Cam A in here, which we don't, we have Cam D. These are the dial settings that you would make in order to get that first stitch output, this one right here, okay? So I'm going to take you around to the different dials now, and you'll be able to see they were smart. The Swedish are always smart, in my opinion. You know, here, trying to see because I've got this elevated pretty high here. Okay, so right above there you can see we're set on purple. We go over here. We're also going to be set on purple. And if we go down below, we're going to be set on 4, which is that multicolored setting, which tells you that is strictly for cam output. Okay? So that's what you would do. It's just a matter of setting number 1, purple, number 2, and then finally making sure that you're set on that multicolor for this bottom knob as well. And then you'll get that first stitch, assuming you have Cam A in. But we're not going to be sewing on cam A, we're going to be sewing on cam D. So we're going to use the same principle. So I'm going to go down to the needle, and off camera, just so I don't have to jumble it back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, I'm going to go and make those setting changes, and then we're going to see what this machine can do on the output for cam D, okay? I'm going to move these extra cams out of the way. All right. Yeah, you can see what I'm doing. Yay. Okay, so I've got cam D in here again. So what I'm doing off screen right now is I'm making sure the first knob is set on green, because I'm going to sew the green stitch first, which is the furthest one on the left. And then I'm going to sew, I'm going to set the second knob to green as well. So we're basically color coordinating, okay folks? And then the bottom one is already set on 4. So I'm going to get my material in, and we're going to see how this 2000 does with these stitch patterns, okay? All right, so stitch number 1 on cam D, and this is our green stitch. Here we go. Actually, let me bring my take-up arm all the way up. You always want to start with your take-up arm at the highest position on your machine. It puts a lot less stress on the machine, and you don't have to hand start that way, no matter what you're sewing. Okay, folks? Here we go. I'm only about probably a quarter of the way right now on the presser foot. There's a lot of room left to give gas, trust me. All right, I almost got it. All right, presser foot up. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this. And I'm going to give you a glimpse of the stitch, but we're not going to dwell on it because I want to get through all of these stitches, and then I can kind of show off. But that gives you a quick snapshot. Let me get these threads over here too. Sorry about that. Let me get these threads. And then we can move on to the next stitch pattern. Okay? There we go. Okay, so this is again cam D. I think that's a real pretty stitch. And you can use your imagination that I actually sewed it straight, which I didn't. I kind of went off a little bit. But it's a beautiful stitch pattern. And again, that's going to be the green one, and I'll zoom in on these afterwards with the stitch output itself. Boy, I really went off course there. I'll have to get this next one straight, and that way you'll be able to not have to keep your head tilted to the side. All right, so I'm going to get that in place. Now I need to make my changes now to go to the next cam setting, which is going to be the red one. And you always want to make sure as well, and I've said this before, make sure your needle is out of the fabric when you make these changes, okay? So I'm going to change this first of all to the red one. I'm already set on red because red and green are together on the second dial, and then the third one is all set. So it really doesn't take long at all. I'm going to make sure my take-up arm is at the highest position, and here we go, folks. Here's the next one. Aha! Up position, I love it! All right. I was working on this late last night, folks. I was in the workshop really late because I wanted to be able to go over to Grace's house today and return this to her because they're in the middle of a bunch of quilt projects right now, she and her daughter. And I actually gave them a loaner machine to use because the projects were that critical, that time sensitive, and so they're anxious to get their Swedish beauty back because there's not a whole lot of machines that can sew like a Husqvarna Viking. There just aren't. All right, so this is our next stitch right here. This is going to be the red stitch on Cam D. Hopefully you can see that. You can see the top row is the first one we did that kind of goes all the way down that way. I did a little bit better on this one, and I like that. It's kind of a scallop appearance. It's real pretty. So I'm going to go ahead and move right on to the third stitch now, which is going to be our yellow one. So obviously we're going to color coordinate the dials so that they're all going to coincide with sewing the yellow stitch on Cam D. So I've got my presser foot down. Just make a slight adjustment. The other thing I noticed, folks, is well, there are obviously a number of challenges with this machine that I've already mentioned, but also the presser foot pressure was way low on the setting that Grace had, and I can only imagine if she was sewing heavy grade stuff, she was probably really struggling with it. So remember again, the heavier the material, the more you're going to increase that presser foot pressure, and the lighter the material, you're going to take that pressure foot pressure down. Okay, I think I said it right. Pressure foot pressure. Try saying that 20 times fast. If you record it, I'll post it on YouTube and I'll send you something special. All right, here's our next one. We're going for yellow. So I'm making an adjustment off camera on the far left dial. I'm going to make an adjustment on the next dial to the right over into the yellow range, and our bottom one is already set for cam output. So I'm just going to check my take up arm, make sure we're at the highest position, and we are. And I go ahead and zip down and show you this really cool yellow stitch. It's going to look kind of odd because it's almost like a zigzag, but it's not. Here we go. I missed it. All right, so let me spin this one around. I'd almost call this kind of a teardrop type stitch output. It's kind of cool. I could see this being used on the edge of a quilt and really presenting well. So I'm going to give these stitches a quick clip, and then I'll show you this stitch output. Again, we're on Cam D, Husqvarna Viking Model 2000. And this is the third stitch that we just did here on the bottom. You can see that little point right here on the bottom and the top peak where that needle is basically hitting that area twice. Instead of just going like a zigzag, boom, 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 it's coming down, it's hitting that boom, boom, going to the top, boom, 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 boom. And that's why you see it a little bit darker in the way it's presenting. I hope you can see that. I think you can see that. Go over here. Yeah, that may be a little bit better that way. So here again you can see that bottom stitch is the one we just did, and the darker points at the peak and the bottom is because that needle is hitting that area twice versus just one time. So this is again the first one we did. It's the green stitch on Cam D, red stitch, and finally the one on the yellow is on the bottom. The final one we're going to do is the blue stitch. So I'm going to be off camera setting those stitches as well. Let me get my needles set up here and my presser foot down, and then we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. All right, presser foot is down. So off camera, since we're sewing the blue stitch, I'm making an adjustment on the far left dial and changing it to blue. Give me 1 second here. See how much it moves that material, just because those feed dogs also obviously play a big role in the output of that material. So already on, the second dial is already on blue because we sewed a yellow stitch last, and blue and yellow are in the same range on that dial, and the bottom one is already set. So this is going to be our final stitch, Cam D, the blue stitch. Take my take up arm to the highest position, and we're ready to rock and roll. All right, here we go. I got it up, but I went a little bit too far. I got kind of excited there. Okay. Give that a clip, get my thread back. I don't think I'm going to be doing any other stitch offs, but I always like to be ready just in case I decide to go rebel and say, yeah, let's do one more. So I'm going to give those a clip real quick. Set this to the side, and I'll show you that last stitch we did right on top. That's a really cool one too. I think that's a real neat looking pattern. I'll move it up a little bit. I'm trying to look past my camera and just see what you're seeing. So this is, again, the blue stitch. The one below is going to be our yellow stitch. This is our red stitch. And the bottom one there is going to be our green stitch. So now that you've seen the machine sew, and it sews beautifully and it's very quiet, I'm going to go ahead and change my camera angle so you can see the stitches that we just did, and then you can see also the stitch output as well. I'll kind of lean it against here, and then we'll come back to it, okay? All right, let me get this adjusted. I've got to get my little stool. I am like on my tiptoes because I have this camera. I wanted to be able to capture Bunny and Lori's machine in the opening shot, and the only way I could accomplish that is to make this thing real tall. And not that I'm incredibly short, but all right, so there's cam D. Those are the stitches that we just did. So you can see again, once I stop moving, you can see. Okay, there we go. Ah! Come on, go up a little bit, you silly thing. All right. So cam D, the first stitch we did is one on the far left, the green one. The second one is a red one, the yellow one, and then the blue one. So let me see if I've got those orientated right. I actually have that upside down, so let me... Well, I can flip it once we're over there. All right. Yeah, you can see the color orientation even easier. See how that blue is there? Blue, yellow. And then down here, we've got that rainbow setting. And so that's all we're doing is we're making adjustments on those three. The bottom one, if you're cam stitching using one of the cams, you never change this dial. You turn it to 4 and you leave it there. So we're really only making adjustments to this one and to this one, which is basically stitch width, stitch length. So, oh, and I forgot to mention, that's our reverse button right in the middle there. I know you guys are so smart, so I'm like, why even explain it to them? But you know what? I need to, because we have new subscribers all the time. On average, we're getting probably about 100 to 150 new subscribers every month. So I can't make that assumption. That's not fair to a new subscriber to assume that they know all that my veteran subscribers do and to jump to that conclusion. So y'all need to hold me accountable sometimes, all right? All right, so the first stitch we did is this one right up here. That's going to be, if I get to it, that's going to be our green stitch, right? Yeah, that's our green stitch. You can see that one. I think it's a beautiful stitch. I really do. And then the next one we did is our red stitch, and that's that scallop right there that I kind of have upside down, but use your imagination. You're smart. And then after our red stitch, we did what? Our yellow stitch, right? This is our yellow stitch. And that, again, if I zoom in really close, I guess that's as far as I can go. The darker points at the peak and at the valley are because, again, in that cam output, it's hitting those areas twice just to give it a distinct, different look than a standard zigzag type stitch or something. All right. And finally, this is our last one. This is going to be our, what color was it? Blue. You're right. This is our blue stitch. And I'll come out a little bit so you can get a little bit more perspective on it. It almost looks like a heartbeat, doesn't it? That also, if you can imagine that on a quilt edge or something, that would look really cool. So again, you know, when it comes to, and you know what? I almost cheated you guys. I didn't show you the back. I'm always bragging about the fact that how do you know a machine has been restored properly? So again, that's our front. You've already seen that. This is our back. I'm going to show you the back as well, because you know what? The back matters. The lock stitch, well, if I can get it to stand up completely, it matters. There we go. So this is, again, The first stitch we did right here, this is going to be our green one. Look at that. Absolutely perfect. Absolutely spectacular. I actually like the look of this even better on the lock side. Look at that. That's our second stitch there. I kind of jumped ahead a little bit. I was excited. That's our red stitch. This is going to be our yellow stitch. And finally, and certainly not last and least, this is our blue stitch. I could have used a lighter material than this U.S. Army grade canvas, but I just love this stuff. It really does a spectacular job, in my opinion, in showing off stitches. Oh, don't go too crazy there, Scott. Spin my screen around and at least have a few seconds to chat with you, right? So this has been quite a project, and I'm kind of blocking poor Grace's machine here. I'll kind of lean in like this a little bit maybe, so you can still see her machine, because I'm not the star. The machine is the star. And it's so great that this is a local customer, Grace and her daughter. They happened to see one of my ads in one of the local papers, and they reached out to me, and they were really despondent. Particularly Grace was despondent. This has been her machine for decades, and she had decided to repair some awning, some heavy canvas I believe it was, and that's when the machine broke. And it wasn't until she went to my YouTube channel, here we are on YouTube, and she saw the videos of the Swedish beauties, the green machines, sewing the different things that I've sewn through all the videos through all the years, and she breathed a sigh of relief because she saw my machines doing stuff that was just mind-boggling. And all of a sudden she was like, well, maybe it wasn't my fault. And it wasn't your fault, Grace, by the way. It's simply a matter of machines sometimes are predisposed to having challenges. The 2000s are notorious for cam stack issues, and then the tension control was just a totally different issue that we had to address as well, and all the other things that you saw in the Facebook posts. So the good news is that this Model 2000 is ready to go to work. You've seen it sew, you've heard it sew, it sews beautifully, and it's ready to come back home and jump back into projects with Grace and her daughter so that they can make stuff for the grandkids and just have fun together. So that's what it's all about, isn't it? When you're sewing, is just having fun, making memories, making projects, and making it happen. And that's what we do here. We don't take no for an answer. We don't say a machine is broken and it's in the ashes and that's where it's going to stay. We get it out of the ashes, we make it well again, we give it a new life, we give it a new beginning, we give it new opportunities to make memories and to make special things for those that that owner loves. So, isn't that fun? All right, well, stay tuned for other videos, folks. Thanks so much for being a loyal subscriber. Grace and Lonnie, have fun with this. God bless you guys.